how do you get those shots? That's a question that I've seen a lot in my footage that I've put together in Flight Simulator, so in this video, I'm going to be finally getting into the steps and things I do behind the scenes to achieve what you've seen in my videos, as well as the other YouTubers that you've seen that are putting together these amazing shots. I'll go into the programs I use and how I use the showcase camera to get those shots. I must disclaim this will only be available to PC users, unfortunately, because until now, most cinematic gameplay you see in the sim has been achieved using external programs, so until Asobo and Microsoft can integrate a recording software in-game, this is how we do it. Parallel 42's chase plane will, however, be making this process much easier, so we're all excited about that. Without further ado, the first thing that we're going to need is the ability to record. So just having any software that captures your screen is sufficient, but I prefer OBS since I like to customize my footage, and if I want any external sounds like a Discord chat, for example, you're in a group flight and you're wanting to record the communication between pilots, it's also possible through OBS. But when it comes to the simulator, we're going to need software that records the aircraft's flight and its movements, so SkyDolly has been my go-to since the beginning. I have experience with Flight Control Replay and the Flight Recorder in 2020, but SkyDolly has worked the best for me in both 2020 and 2024, which is my recommendation. It records your aircraft's movements all the way down to the flight surfaces, and you can even record formation flights. So for air shows, you can have that formation flight recorded for you, but if you want to practice formation flying, you can also set your recording and chase that recording of your flight as well, which is pretty cool. But another cool aspect of it is the speed of the simulation that you can change. So you can record slow motion flights if you wanted to and get those really cool action shots of a barrel roll or whatever. It's really awesome. But the best part is that this is free. SkyDolly is free, so donate to the developer. That's all I can say. Lastly, we need to understand the showcase camera, also known as the drone camera. It's probably the most complicated part of creating these shots, but I'm just going to try to keep it basic for you guys, so if you want to know more, I can get into more details in another video. Just leave me a comment down below about what questions you have and I'll get into it. So the drone camera does have a reputation for being pretty complicated and not so easy to use, just due to the fact that setting up its controls are quite difficult, and memorizing all those bindings on the keyboard is also not so user-friendly, so hopefully we can change that reputation after this video. What typically most people recommend is setting up the controls on an Xbox controller, just so you have all of the bindings at your fingertips, but you can also remain on the peripherals that you are using. So for me, for example, I have my X56 and its drone controls are also set up on the peripherals as well, so when I get it to the drone camera, I don't have to switch my hands, I don't have to switch peripherals, I can just stay where I'm at. So the first thing that we're going to be getting into is the control settings. We'll go ahead and get into that, and I'll stop driving the camera. I was just driving it there. So yeah, I have it set up in a certain way, and hopefully you guys will be able to get that set up too. So let's go ahead and head into the menu. Let's go into settings, go into the controls. So the first thing that we're going to be needing to set up is active pause. So when you're in a flight, we weren't in a flight right there, but in flight, when you want to set up a camera, you kind of get the idea, and the plane's still kind of, it's in motion, so setting up a camera in a place that you're wanting to, record a flyby, for example, on, that's a little difficult. So intuitively, you need to pause the aircraft. So doing that quickly, not going up into the toolbar and going up with the mouse and clicking pause. Yeah, obviously you just want to set that up on your peripheral first. So going into controls, typing in toggle active pause. Let's see if I can type. Get that set up on one of your peripherals, the Xbox controller or whatever you're using. I have it set up on the stick, button 2. That will be the first step. The next step will obviously be getting into the drone camera. You don't want to go back up into the toolbar, hit the camera button, and go into showcase camera like that, and then go into the settings doing it that way. That's just not user-friendly. So toggle drone camera will be the next thing. You get that set up. It's not called that. What is it called? Toggle drone? Toggle drone camera. There it was. I just typed it in. Weird. So that's going to be set up on the 10th button of my throttle quadrant. It's going to be down there actually. And so now that we've got that set up, we're going to get into the basic movements of the drone camera. So we're going to be needing to bind the translation axes for the drone camera. So let's go, yeah, let's see. Increase drone translation speed, decrease drone translation speed. Well, before we get into speeds, we're going to want translation axes. So the first thing that we have here is the x-axis, for example. That's going to be, you know, moving the stick left and right. That's going to move the camera left and right. So if you have a stick, obviously bind that in that way. And the z-axis is going to be forward and backwards. So that there you have, you know, forward, back, left and right movement. And you'll also want up and down movement. So I'm going to go over to the throttle, the y-axis. That's going to be up and down movement. I've got that configured to that little black, it's kind of like an analog stick. And you move that up and down. That's going to be my Y translation axes. But you can also configure it to the translation up and down, I believe, or move drone up and down. Let's see if we can find something like that, because that's going to be important for those of you who don't have an extra axis. For example, if you just have a stick, you're going to configure the z-axis and x-axis and not be able to move the camera up and down, which is also important in my opinion. So yeah, translate drone up and down. Those are going to be the settings you set up for a button. For example, the hat switches on the top of your stick, if you have them, you can set translation up and down on one of those, and that will make it easier for you. So once we have those translation movements binded, you'll also obviously need to do the yaw axis and bind that as well. So drone yaw axis, so twisting the stick right and left is going to be a way you can do that. But like I said, you can also set that up with a hat switch as well. I believe that's going to be probably rotation. I haven't set it up before that way. Yaw drone left, yaw drone right. So it's not an axis, but yeah, if you set that up on a left hat switch, right hat switch, you'll be able to configure that as well if you'd like. So now that we've got those basic movements configured, let's get into the drone translation and rotation speed. So you want to obviously slow the drone down when you get into its camera, because for example, where the aircraft is parked currently, right when you get in a drone camera, it's going to zoom around really fast, so you're going to be wanting to slow it down so you can get like that slow panning shot, and rotation speed as well. So get those set up. Those are set up on my throttle, and yeah, there's going to be 4 different settings because you'll need to increase and decrease. So it's intuitive to go ahead and put these buttons next to each other. They're going to, for me, they're my toggle switches up here on the right side, up and down. So that's just more intuitive for me, and you can set that up in any way you would like to for you. So we've got that set up, and an extra, you know, quality that you can add to your shots is of course foreground blur or depth of field. So that blurs the background when you're farther away from an object of focus, the aircraft for instance, and that works. Not necessarily in the way I'd like it to. It kind of blurs the lines of the aircraft, so it doesn't look so well. So I try to avoid shots where I have to include depth of field. But zooming is something that's pretty important. So that's going to be the last thing I believe we're going to go into for the controls. So increase drone zoom, decrease drone zoom, that's going to be really important. So in aviation, there are a variety of cinematic opportunities. So I mean, like in real life, you see on YouTube guys setting up GoPros on their vertical stabilizers, or you know, by their wing roots and stuff. So that's there, but you also have, you know, guys with long cameras at the Mach loop, for example, capturing, you know, the F-35s and C-130s coming through there 450 knots, and they zoom in. So obviously zooming is something that's really important to configure as well. So now that we've got that set up, I think we're ready to go back into the flight to put this all into action. So let's go back into the P180. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how I just got this set up here. So to reset, unfortunately, you're not able to do that with a shortcut button. So I'm going to go into Showcase and reset its position. So when you go into drone camera, this is what you get. And then it moves really fast, rotations pretty quickly, and you know, you got your translation y-axis configured, and look how fast that goes. So if you're wanting to get a really, you know, if you're wanting to set it up like a movie, you'll want to decrease the speed. So first we'll go ahead and decrease speed, and now we've got that just slow pan, and we'll want to decrease rotation speed as well. So now we've got that slowed down, and let's move it back into that place that I had it earlier. So when you decrease the translation speed, not only does it, slow it down laterally, but vertically it does as well. So now we have it in that spot that I had it. So it's the default zoom, and this, kind of looks quite wide for the field of view. So let's set it up. Yeah, let's set it up with a slow pan past this big truck here, this utility truck, and zoom it in. And now we've got that slow panning reveal of the aircraft that we're flying. So that's basically how you set it up like that. And that's just going to be, recording on the tarmac or in the parking position that you have the aircraft. So obviously you can move it up, and then you can set up the drone pitch as well. And that's how, you get this what is it called? Tilt shift. In cinematography, you get that tilt shift, and you get up here, and you get that slow pan as well. You can get that set up too. And I think that's going to just cover the basics for setting up a shot like on the ground. So we're at Fusen. Let's go ahead and get this thing started up, and I'll show you guys how to use Sky Dolly to set up a takeoff. So obviously you can't fly the aircraft and operate the drone at the same time, so you need software to record the aircraft, its movements, taking off. Let's see, I've got track IR as well set up, so now it's unpaused, so I can move my head and move the camera in drone as well. So if you need to follow an aircraft, for example, you can, on a flyby, but you can also lock the camera too. So we're at Fusen, and I'm going to go ahead and get the 180 started up and go ahead and take off to the west. Avoid those power lines, hopefully. And yeah, I'll show you guys how I use Sky Dolly to set up the cinematic flight in that way. So let's go ahead and go back into the cockpit. The trim wheel sounds like a woodpecker. Alright, so we'll switch our battery on. Avionics coming up, and we will open the fuel valves. Pumps coming on, and we'll go ahead and start our right engine. So there we go. There's another, cinematic opportunity. What I typically do is activate Sky Dolly, and then it records me starting the engine, and then I finish that part, go back to the beginning of the recording, press play, and go external, so I capture the entire startup process externally rather than having to go switch externally and go into this style of recording. So let's go back into the cockpit and make sure we've got our condition levers set to full, right? There we go. Now we'll get the thing speeding up there on the right side. Let's go ahead and get our avionics on, right generators coming on, and we'll go ahead and get number 1 started. So left ignition, left start. There we go. And we should have the left spinning up too. Alright. No flight plan, so we're just going to be taking off from Fusen westbound. And I believe we are up to speed. There we go. Flaps set to 1, position lights, anti-collisions, and recogs coming on. And I believe we are good to go. EPU coming on. And lead air for left and right. We can go ahead and switch those on. But one thing that's important that I do remember is turning on the hydraulics, so we have steering, because that's important. And we're good to go. We won't need the pushback. We can go ahead and reverse out of this spot, can't we? Not quite. Okay. Well, I don't have crash settings on, so we'll just go ahead and head through these guys. Alright, so let's go ahead and position ourselves over here on the west side of Fusen. That ground effect is really, yeah. Oh my gosh, what is happening here? That is such an exaggeration. Okay, let's get ourselves on the west side of the runway here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and now pull up Sky Dolly for you guys. Get ourselves positioned here. This is supposed to be concrete or asphalt, one of the two. And flaps already set to 1. Landing lights are coming on. Taxi, that's already on. Alright, so got parking brake engaged. I'm going to go ahead and bring Sky Dolly over into this screen. I have a second screen, so that makes things like this a lot easier. Alright, so as you can see here, I've got it set up to just record. You can obviously do formation as well, but we're going to just record. So now it's begun. and I'll go ahead and bring this over into my left screen and go ahead and commence takeoff. So, alright, that's the is on. Stall field, auto feather. Okay, well, oops, forgot to turn those on, didn't I? And left generator, forgot to turn that on. It's good to have this, isn't it? Auto feather. Where's that at? Yep. And one more thing, oil cooling. Yeah, we just don't need to turn that on right now. I think temperatures are good. Right. Okay, so we are good to go. Flight control surface check. And parking brake disengaged. Throttling up, we're ready to go. Let's make sure we don't overstress the torque. I think that's in there as well. I think after the first update they made that a little easier. We are recording, remember, in Sky Dolly, so once we get up in the air, we'll get to a position, and there's V1, and we are in the air. Yeah, this thing really, like, once it gets its nose up in the air, it's gone. It's airborne, so. Yeah, there you can see Neuschwanstein Castle over there on the south side. Foothills of the Alps. And we're up in the air, so let's go ahead and initiate a sharp left bank here. We'll go ahead and put this into the shot at the end of the video. And we'll bring the throttle back. Gear's already up. Okay, now, this is where I click active pause. I bring Sky Dolly over and I press stop. So now we can unpause that. Let's bring Sky Dolly back into the mix, and we press play. We're obviously brought back to the place that we started the flight from, and now this is where we pause Sky Dolly. We go into the drone camera. Okay, it's set up to where it was originally, and this is where things get a little bit, I guess you could say, complicated. Reset the position, and now we're going to lock the camera to the aircraft. We're going to turn off follow mode. So now as I translate the camera, you can see it's following the aircraft. And this is going to be good for the takeoff roll. So this is how I get those shots. We're going to go ahead and minimize that. We'll just bring it up here so it's still accessible. It's not like we're putting together some footage right now. And this is typically how I set it up here. We're going to have it pan to the right as it's taking off. So now we'll go over and go to Sky Dolly, and we're going to press play. And now we see that we are now moving. I'll just put that over there, and I'll go ahead and start panning the camera. I'll go ahead and increase zoom a little bit, and now we see that we're set up here. There we go. Alright, so we'll go ahead and pan that. Oh my goodness, that is horrible, that effect. They need to do something about that. I use my head tracking to orient the camera a little bit, and that's how you get that shot. Gears coming up. It's pretty cool. Okay, now, remember that sharp left bank that I initiated right at the end there? I think we can see it here. And I'm about to start it now. Okay, so we'll pause it, go up to the camera, and reset the position. It's going to bring us all the way back to the plane. And we'll do the same thing. So we'll turn locking mode on, we'll turn follow mode off, and now we'll take the camera and we're going to put it up in a position that kind of like records the apex, I guess you could say, kind of like in racing, the apex of the bank. So we'll zoom in, and we'll put the camera right about here. I'm going to go ahead and turn track IR off. I'll just pause it and orient it right at the aircraft. And now we'll go ahead and minimize that and press play, and we get that shot. So cool. Zoom it out. Yep, and that's how you do outros for cinematic videos too. It's pretty cool. Okay, now the flight has ended, and now the plane is going to go fly on its own. Alright, so we are back. And you know what? Why not? Let's capture a landing. So we're going to go ahead and... I'm still flying it with the peripherals. I'm going to go ahead and bring Sky Dolly over. We'll hit record. Now we're recording a new flight. And obviously I'm unrealistically banking it here. Unpause track IR. And we will bring us back over to final for Fusen. I don't know what the winds are, but it seemed like we were actually downwind on takeoff. Took a while to get to V1, but I didn't even have us on at full power, so I think it shouldn't be too bad. Got throttle back to idle. That's why we've got the bell ringing. This thing doesn't have a lot of drag. We're actually ascending a little bit, not slowing down too much, but we'll go ahead and put ourselves in a sharp right bank here and hopefully get that airspeed down. Alright, then we can go ahead and drop our gear, and I think that's when the drag really starts bringing the airspeed down. There we go. And we'll set flaps to full. Remember, we are still recording on Sky Dolly, so we'll go ahead and increase throttle so we don't get into that stall range. Setting ourselves up for a very sharp approach. I don't know if we're going to make this. We'll see. Straight over to the left aileron, keep the ball in the middle, make sure we don't go into uncoordinated flight here. And this is crazy, but going to be, you know, it's for the views, right? We'll level it out. Oh my goodness. Okay. And touchdown. There we go, reverse thrusters. We could be downwind on this side. I'm about to overshoot. Okay, well at least there's, you know, space to overshoot over here. And that was the landing. Maybe Fusen, the glider airfield, is a little bit too short for, you know, corporate private airplane. Alright, so now we're gonna go ahead and pause the recording. I'm over on Sky Dolly now. I'll bring it back into the screen. Paused it. And now we'll stop it, press play, and we're back into that place over the, I forget which lake this is, but we're back over the lake, and now we're approaching that setup for the final. So we'll go into Sky Dolly, and we can go ahead and fast forward to the place that we want to record, right? So now we're set up for that short final, and we know, you know, a good place to put this camera would probably be, you know, right about here. So we'll pause the simulation and go into the drone camera. We're all the way out here where we had it last, so we need to go into the menu real quick, hit reset position, and now we're in the place that we need to be. So we're going to turn off lock mode, follow mode. We're going to turn off follow mode, turn on the lock mode, minimize this, pan the camera over to a good spot. Wow, this was really dangerous. No passengers in this flight. Okay, so now we've got that set up in the place that we want it. I'll go ahead and pause my track IR here so it's not panning around a little bit unaccurately. And we'll go back into Sky Dolly. I hope this isn't too much for you guys. It's really active on the go presentation of how I put this together. And we'll bring the flight back to short base final. Oh my goodness. Just not textbook, but probably going to be crazy for footage. So we'll go ahead and unpause that. We'll minimize that. And now we're set up here. I don't know if I stayed coordinated there. That is nuts. Oh my gosh, that looks like I'm about to go into the ground. There we go. And touchdown. Wow, that is horrible. What is that? Okay, well, that is basically a rundown of how I put shots together. I hope you guys enjoyed that video so far, and like I said, if you want to know any more details about, the specifics on how I put that footage together, just let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.